I have never seen one inmate just walk in here and be unanimously hated by the entire population. I ain't never seen it.
How'd I get so lucky?
You could have robbed banks, you could have sold crack, you could have stole your grandmama's pension, and nobody would have cared. But shaving points off a football game, and that's just un-American.
If you're gonna play the game, you gotta act the part. Howdy, I'm your host, Anna Renfro, joined by my boyfriend and co-host, Hunter.
How's it going?
Today we're going to be talking about the 2005 film, The Longest Yard. So currently, The Longest Yard sits at a 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb, but Hunter, what would you rate it?
So actually, kind of surprisingly, again, as per usual, this is a film I have seen before, but it has been a long while, and I was kind of surprised some of the football accuracies, and I think I'm giving it extra points for historical football references as well, because it kind of shows that they did the research at least. I'm going to give it a 7.
Actually, I think I'm going to match your score too.
Wow.
I would give this a solid 7. I mean, for me, like a really big part of it was just like the cast. Like with an Adam Sandler movie, it's really, really hard to go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, again, Adam Sandler, Burt Reynolds, Terry Crews,
Chris Rock, too.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, it's a very, very, very star-studded cast. Oh, I didn't even realize Michael Irvin's in it.
Most importantly, Terry Crews, too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of big names in this film.
Yeah. But no, I mean, in terms of football accuracies, I mean, I mentioned how I loved all the football references in there. Like the Fumblerooski, which was a play devised in the 90s to utilize like intentional fumbles, which is now illegal in today's football. But it was nice to see that reference and like see that actual play call kind of drawn up. And then when they were pitching the ball back and forth in the game, they say remnants of Cal Stanford, which if you don't know, Cal and Stanford played a game way back. Is it either in the 70s or 80s? Yeah, Stanford thought they had the game won. So their band was walking out into the field, and Cal was lateraling it and pitching it back and forth. And Cal ended up winning because they were just doing that. But what the funny thing that happened is half of Stanford's band was on the field at the time. So the football players are running through Stanford's band on the field. And so it was just this kind of funny spectacle. Another reference I really enjoyed is he made the joke when one of the guards said that he was from and played at the University of Miami, and he made Paul Crewe made the joke that a lot of his teammates are probably there with him too. That's kind of a dig at the old school Miami that was kind of known as, not the most upright citizens. I mean, they did have the instance of the Catholics versus convicts game in which Miami was deemed the convicts. So there's a lot of football references that I really, really enjoyed in it. And you can tell they actually really did a lot of their research. And so that kind of made me enjoy the movie more, because you tell they actually cared about the sport in a sports comedy and not just the comedy part.
Yeah, I have to say, honestly, this film was pretty heavily into the comedy, but again, it tackles like such a serious subject in such a lighthearted manner. So the main character, of course, he's a football quarterback that's fallen from fame for throwing a game. He's shunned by the football community, outcasted even when he arrives to serve his sentence in prison. Honestly, like a lot of the team's treatment, even before like they start really meshing well as a team, is extremely poor. It's incredibly reflective of the American prison system, especially within Texas. I mean, if there's one thing the warden got right, there's two things Texans are pretty crazy about. It's prison and football. The dynamic between the cast is very incredible. I think that mostly is just because of how many talented actors they were able to recruit for this film. Not exactly sure what the budget was, but man, either they got a lot of these stars early in their careers or they just played their cards right. But again, just because of like how well characters were casted, it elevates the comedy because you have a lot of comedians who are very experienced. Cinematically, the way that the football training scenes, the montages, even like when they go to play the game, the way it was filmed, I just kept thinking to myself of like how creative some of the angles were, how cinematic it was, and compared to some of the other films we've seen too, at least the football scenes have backtrack music.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Last week was rough. But again, some of the things that they kind of fell victim to, which feels like every sports movie, every football movie at least does, they decided that every tackle need to be with the forearm and they're flipping people over. Also, yeah, so this is what I found, going back, sorry to hark back to what you said. Paramount spent about $4 million on the set. So, yeah, I don't know what the official budget was for this movie, but it's probably a lot with all the actors they have in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, even like, again, like Burt Reynolds in there, Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Terry Crews. Yeah, that's a lot. But anyway, back to what I was mentioning. I feel like that's like the cardinal sin for all football movies is when they start doing the thing where they're like really hyped up and they're like, we're going to play hard. And they start tackling people with their forearms. That does not happen. That happens sparingly. And sparingly is even putting it strong. For a football player to be running full speed and for his momentum to shift simply by someone's forearm, most of the time what's going to happen, someone's going to swing their forearm, the person running is going to run through their arm, send them swinging sideways. They're not just going to get decked and clotheslined and flop to the ground lifeless. I feel like that's the cardinal sin for football movies for me, and this movie did commit that a lot, obviously. And then again, like they had the funny moments where it was Crew hitting the ref in the nuts 2 times in a row. So obviously it's a comedy. They did get a little goofy, but it was I feel like it stayed pretty true to like sports roots in general.
I just have to say, I've never seen a bad Adam Sandler movie.
Jack and Jill.
Oh. Well, okay, Jack and Jill is maybe not at the forefront of my mind. I haven't seen a lot of bad Adam Sandler movies.
Have you seen Uncut Gems?
I have, actually.
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Is it good?
Well, Adam Sandler, he has, like, this kind of main character syndrome. And, of course, Sandler didn't, like, direct this film, but, like, of course, in his later films, he has a habit of writing himself into very important roles, dating very hot women, which, honestly, like, I if I had to change one thing about the movie, I would have made the intro maybe a little bit more short, just because I really didn't care for, like, characters we wouldn't see for again. Like his girlfriend at the time and girlfriend's friend.
Oh, his girlfriend, who we failed to mention, is also Courtney Cox.
Yeah. Adam Sandler, he has a way of dating very hot women in films. But I mean, other than that, like, I really don't have any main issues with this film. However, another big thing, well, of course, like, we were joking about it when we were watching it, like, the library scene, like, the race tensions between, like, racist guards and the black inmates.
Racist Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
Which, again, I feel like is probably, I mean, again, I'm not sitting in the U.S. prison system, so I'm not going to speak on it too much, but I feel like that would maybe something that you could probably see, is that sort of, like, racial tension.
I would say that's very accurate.
Yeah. So, like, I kind of feel like that, again, like you mentioned, a very, very difficult, very touchy subject, and, I mean, very touchy in the movie, too. Like, you hear it, and immediately you cringe. You're like, ooh, but, it's pretty reflective of, it's probably pretty well reflective, and for them to tackle it in this comedy is.
And even if you see, like, where the prison's funding is going, it's not going towards inmates. It's going towards funding their semi-pro guard team. Like, everywhere from their training equipment to their training spaces, to even, like, the quality of players that they have, to even when they're transported to the game from the buses that they even ride. I was just really impressed in like how a comedy was able to just take on like these really like harsh subjects and present it in like a really, really digestible way that doesn't really induce so much cognitive dissonance, which is kind of like the feeling of discomfort when like you're presented with information that's pretty contrary to your beliefs. It helps the audience sympathize a lot more with the convicts and the prisoners, and of course like kind of get to know their side of the story as underdogs a lot more, to appreciate a lot of the hard work they put in. And I mean, that's really just demonstrated so well. I mean, I have to say Siegel did a great job directing this film. I stand very solidly on a 7 for this. This is a spectacular comedy.
Yeah, I will say, though, a semi-pro game, no matter what like the situation is not selling out that size of the stadium, and they're sure as hell not getting ESPN to come and cover the game. That was obviously a bit, but like, I mean, maybe it would be on the Ocho, which I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Mm-mm.
That was like ESPN's channel where they would show up all the random stuff, like underwater horse racing and like, you know, like airborne water polo and like just random nonsense like that. It would maybe be on something like that, but even then probably not. But you know, they I know why they did it. They did it for the little bit of the commentators and everything. But yeah, no. Definitely not.
But other than that, that's all we have for this episode. I mean, overall, this was a really great watch. I mean, you and I both had a lot of kind of just laugh out loud moments. I think ultimately, like, it's worth your time. Like, if you have it on Prime or something, give it a watch. But other than that, we'll see y'all next week. But just remember, if you're gonna play the game, you gotta act the part. I'm Anna Renfro, I'm your host, and I've been joined by Hunter, my boyfriend and co-host, and we'll see y'all next week.